Mike's in the bag picking teeth from his skull and playing with his tongue. He's all sick and everything.
I want my mommy.
He kept on punching him and shooting him, and I had to grab him like this to pull him back, and I told him to stop.
You mean people are gonna hate us for this?
I hate my life.
This is our life now.
Oh my God, man.
Hello everybody, my name is Nicole Christensen and this is The Crime Happens Here. Today we are going to be talking about the murder of Seath Jackson. So Seath Jackson was horrifically murdered on April 17th, 2011 in Summerfield, Florida. He was killed by 2 teenagers and 3 adults ranging from 15 to 20 years old. So Seath was dating a girl by the name of Amber Wright, who was 15 at the time of his death. However, Amber began seeing an older boy by the name of Michael Bargo at the same time she was dating Seath. Emotions really escalated. Seath had really lost control and began sending threatening messages to Michael and even beat him up at one point. Seath's actions just fueled the hatred that Michael had towards Seath, and it led to him being brutally murdered. So Seath and Amber began their relationship when Seath was 14 years old, and they met at Bellevue High School. Initially, the relationship was fine. They were getting along. They seemed like they were really happy together. But as per most relationships among 14 and 15-year-olds, it didn't last very long, and within 3 months, reports say that Amber cheated on Seath with Michael Bargo, who is an 18-year-old man. So Amber had been unfaithful towards Seath, and so understandably, Seath was just really hurt by this decision made by Amber. But instead of just kind of quietly moving on, he refused to be quiet about it, and he publicly expressed his disappointment and in her actions. He channeled all of his emotions into Facebook, resorting to online bullying and attacking both Michael and Amber. Facebook posts before the killing proved to show that they were having quite a bit of trouble leading up to the attack. They were both fighting back and forth through messages on Facebook, and Michael even joined the chat. Seath was just furious at Amber and called her a slut and a cheat on Facebook for all the world to see. And at one point, he even accused her of doing meth. I do not know if this is true, but either way, he did accuse her of using meth. Their conversations went back and forth, and none of it was pleasant. Amber shared on Facebook that she had never loved Seath and that she wanted him to leave her alone. And then this obviously made Seath even more angry that she would say such hurtful things. To fuel Michael's anger towards Seath, Amber even lied to Michael and said that Seath was physically abusing her and had been their entire relationship. Michael's frustration towards Seath grew the more Amber lied, and a week before Seath was murdered, Michael threatened to kill Seath. On multiple occasions, Seath had threatened Michael on Facebook and kept on challenging him to fight. Many people actually started making fun of Michael Bargo because they said he was too soft and he was going to be beaten up by Seath. This clearly made Michael mad and really impacted his ego because at the time, he was about 4 years older than Seath, and so it just made him really frustrated. Talk about Michael. So Michael Bargo was kind of a disaster. He had a record for multiple things, including burglary, and had been arrested multiple times prior to the killings. He had a reputation of trying to be this tough guy, and he wanted everybody to really think he was cool and that he was a troublemaker. That's just what he wanted people to believe. He grew up in a conflicted home with an alcoholic father. Michael actually had an active restraining order on him and was known for carrying around a .22 caliber revolver and would actually brag to other people about it. He usually had it on his possession. Seath and Michael had known each other before this whole controversy started, and they did not like each other. after Seath died, Amber admitted that she never actually liked Michael and she was just dating him to make Seath jealous. But this one's kind of hard to believe. I think she was just trying to backtrack from the bad decisions that they all made. Okay, so Amber's brother, a 16-year-old boy named Kyle Hooper, was dating a girl for a little bit. The girl ended up breaking up with him over the phone, and this just made him so furious. So he went over to the house to talk to her about their relationship, and when he came into the room, he saw her in bed with Seath Jackson. So now Kyle was upset with Seath and had a motive to commit a crime against him. So we have Michael, who's mad at Seath, and now Kyle, who is mad at Seath, and Amber, who's mad at Seath. So we got 3 people now mad at Seath. Shortly after this happened, Seath figured out that Michael is going to be at a party with Amber. So Seath shows up to this party and just starts yelling at Michael. And in response, Seath grabbed Michael and threw him to the ground. This happened in front of a large crowd of friends, and this made Michael even more upset and was really humiliated. He was going to have to go to great lengths to restore this pride. So let's go to April 17th, 2011. So Amber lured Seath to a woman named Charlie Ellies. mobile home. Charlie's home is known for being just like this hangout spot for kids and young adults who wanted to get away from their own lives. There were really no rules at Charlie's house, and it was also just this one big party spot. Her husband was in jail, and this was her home, so she just made all the rules. So Amber texted Seath and told him to meet her at Charlie's house. And although they were in this kind of tumultuous relationship, Seath listened to this text message against his better judgment. She told him that she wanted to meet up to chat because she loved him. She was going to say really anything that she could to get him to show up at the house. How could somebody so easily write a text message that was going to lead to somebody being violently killed? It's mind-boggling. So Seath was certain that he was going to get jumped. He even told her that he better not be getting jumped. Even though it appeared he was really apprehensive going, he ended up going anyway. He shows up and is ready to patch things up with his ex-girlfriend. But to his surprise, not only is his girlfriend there, but then Charlie. So this is making him a little uncomfortable, but he decides to go into the home with them because Amber and Charlie convince him to go inside. He reluctantly agrees and he enters into the home. So inside, he was met with Kyle. So Kyle is the one where his ex-girlfriend slept with Seath. So Seath understands that Kyle's really mad at him still, but Kyle was super friendly with Seath, which made this kind of weird for Seath, because why is Kyle being nice to him? That makes no sense. Amber tells everybody to leave and that she is going to talk to Seath by herself. So we have Michael's waiting. So Seath doesn't know Michael's there yet. Michael's in the other room and Kyle leaves, Charlie leaves, and then Charlie's roommate is with Michael as well. And Charlie's roommate's name is Justin Soto, and he's 20 years old. So they're quietly preparing this ambush in the other room while Seath is being distracted by Amber. So they say that Kyle kind of all of a sudden panicked and didn't want to be part of any of this anymore. And that is when the ringleader, Michael Bargo, tried to explain to him all the reasons that Seath should die. He reminded him of the reasons why Seath was just a terrible, awful guy. And this is when they left the back room and attacked Seath. They started beating him with pieces of wood. That is when Michael pulled out a gun and Seath was then shot with his gun. After being beaten and shot one time, Seath tried to flee the scene, like he's running, and he was then shot another time and was continually beaten by the group. He was then grabbed and placed in a bathtub. They wanted him to suffer for a long time. They certainly didn't want to make this like a death, a quick and easy or even painless. It was all about humiliation and payback at this point. So the group then went and broke his knees in order for him to fit into a sleeping bag. He was then shot another time and his body was thrown on top of a fire to be burned. They burned his body for so long that it literally turned into ashes. He was essentially cremated. When Seath didn't come home, his parents contacted the police and filed a missing persons report. The police began searching for him but didn't know where to start at first. But then Kyle, the one who was kind of apprehensive at the end, went and confessed to his mom about the murder. She immediately called the police and it led to the mobile home. So during this search of the property, investigators uncovered evidence pointing to a murder that had taken place at the residence. Subsequent revelations unveiled that the involvement of James Haven, a 37-year-old ex-boyfriend of Amber Wright's mother, in assisting with the disposing of the body. When they finally found Michael, he was about an hour and a half away with James, because they were planning on scattering the ashes of Seath Jackson. What adds a layer of intrigue to the situation is that James was well aware of the sinister plan from the beginning. He knew that the group intended to allure Seath to the house, subject him to physical abuse, and ultimately end his life. Despite his discomfort with the plan, James chose to not intervene or alert the authorities. Instead, he distanced himself from the conversation. So they're having this conversation about luring Seath Jackson and killing him, and they really wanted James to be part of it. And James is like, nope, peace, I'm not being part of this. So he leaves. But then he doesn't do anything. He doesn't call anybody. So when the tragic events unfolded, James did not contact the police or attempt to dissuade the group from carrying out their deadly scheme. However, he appeared at the scene the day after the killing, expressing a willingness to assist in the cleanup efforts. While he may not have directly participated in the act of murder, James played a role in concealing the crime, becoming an accomplice in the aftermath. When each of the individuals were interviewed, they were all compliant and explained what happened. They all agreed that there was a plan to kill him, and they all participated. All of them shared the exact same story, and it seemed to be very consistent. What was also consistent was that they were not really at fault and that they were coerced into murdering Seath by Michael Bargo. They didn't really want to murder Seath, and they really didn't do anything. Each of them seemed to be completely dumbfounded when the police officers informed them that they were going to spend time in jail. In a filmed interview, Detective Rhonda Straub of Marion County Sheriff's Office explained how the two juveniles of the group would be sent to the Juvenile Assessment Center and the adult would then go to Marion County Jail. She then said, "Take a deep breath. You'll have no bond. You won't be getting out. Listen to me. Everybody just take a deep breath." One of the girls was in disbelief and said, "We really didn't do anything." Then Straub said, No. See, but you did." How did the girls believe that they didn't do anything? They literally planned the death of a teenager and then tried to dispose of his body by setting it on fire. Straub continues, "Listen, first of all, let's get over that hump right now, that we really didn't do anything, because everybody's complicit here. A person died, a person was murdered." The group of people who brutally killed Seath were in absolute denial that they were actually going to be charged with his murder. One of the girls mentioned that her life was over and she wasn't going to be able to get out of jail for a few years. They didn't realize that they were likely going to be spending the rest of their lives in prison. They were all sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Seath Jackson. This is completely crazy that a group of people could come together and all come to the conclusion that a 14-year-old boy needed to die. That makes no sense. And the fact that an adult overheard this happening, like this grown man overheard this happening, instead of calling police and explaining the situation, he just leaves and then comes back the next day and says, "How can I help?" This is just, I'm speechless. I'm really sorry to the Jackson family who had to suffer with this, and it was just so unnecessary. All right, that's it for me, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. The crime happens here. Peace.